My daughter said, "Mom, please sit here, behind the kitchen." And that's how I ended up hidden with the hired help, at my own daughter's wedding. I never thought the child I raised with every ounce of love I had would one day be ashamed to call me her mother. My name is Evelyn Davis. I'm 65, a retired school teacher, and a widow. For 40 years, my world revolved around my daughter, Amelia. When my husband, Mark, passed away, I made her my reason to keep living. I sold our old home to help pay her college fees. I worked part-time even after retirement to support her dreams. She was my pride, my purpose, my entire world. So when she called and said, "Mom, I'm getting married," I cried. Not out of sadness, but out of joy. She said it would be a big wedding, her dream come true. And I told her, "Whatever it costs, darling, I'll help." I thought I was giving her happiness, but I was only paying for my own heartbreak. The wedding day came bathed in golden sunlight. Everyone looked stunning. Amelia in her gown, her bridesmaids glowing, Nathan's family dressed like royalty. The hall sparkled with chandeliers, fresh roses, and white silk. I carried a small box in my hands, a gift of gold cufflinks that once belonged to Mark. I thought it would symbolize our blessing from heaven. As I entered the hall, I looked for my seat. Front row? No. Second row? No again. I kept walking, table after table, until I reached the back of the hall, right beside the kitchen door. There it was, my name, scribbled faintly on a small white card, Mrs. Evelyn Davis. Beside me, waiters carried trays and shouted orders. I could smell food, hear the clatter of dishes. I stood there frozen, heart thudding. Maybe it was a mistake, I thought. But when I asked the planner, she smiled politely and said, "Oh, no mistake, ma'am. The bride asked for you to be seated somewhere quiet. Quiet." I knew what that word meant. Hidden. Later, 2 women passed by, friends of Nathan's mother. They spoke softly, but their words stabbed deep. She didn't want her mom up front. Heard she lives alone in some tiny apartment. Oh, right. Nathan's parents are very particular about appearances. Honestly, I don't blame her. The old woman doesn't really fit the theme. Their laughter sliced through me. I looked at Amelia sitting up front, laughing beside her in-laws, posing for cameras, as if I didn't exist. The same little girl who once cried every night until I sang her lullabies now pretended I wasn't there. And suddenly, the music, the laughter, the glowing lights, everything turned cold. All my life, I gave up pieces of myself for her. When she wanted piano lessons, I skipped dinners to afford the fees. When she needed a dress for prom, I mended my old clothes to save money. When Mark died, I promised him I'd make sure she never struggled, that I'd protect her, even from loneliness. I remember one night during college finals, she broke down crying. I stayed up all night making flashcards, whispering, "You're my brave girl. You'll make me proud." She did. She became successful, confident, everything I'd hoped. But somewhere along the way, she decided pride didn't include me. When the dinner began, I realized I'd been served last, after every guest. The waiter apologized. I told him it wasn't his fault. I quietly ate half my meal, then placed my napkin down. No one noticed when I stood. No one noticed when I walked past the laughing crowd, past the photographers, past my daughter dancing under the lights. No one stopped me. Outside, the cool evening air hit my face like freedom. The sound of music faded behind me as I took out my phone. I opened my banking app, the same one I'd used to pay the florist, the catering deposit, the gown. With trembling hands, I canceled the final transfer for the honeymoon fund. "If you want me hidden from your world, Amelia," I whispered, "then you'll live it without my help." Then I walked away, heels clicking softly against the pavement, each step lighter than the last. A week later, she called. "Mom, where did you go after the wedding? Everyone was asking." Her voice sounded rehearsed, like she wanted to sound concerned but didn't know how. "I left early," I said quietly. My seat didn't have a view. There was silence. Then a sigh. "Mom, you're overreacting. Nathan's parents, they just wanted everything to look uniform." "Uniform?" I repeated. "You mean perfect. Without me." "You're being dramatic," she said. I didn't argue. For the first time in my life, I let the silence speak for me. 2 months later, Her honeymoon photos appeared online. Lavish, tropical, glowing. I didn't feel jealous or bitter. I just felt free. I had spent decades proving my love. Now I was finally learning to love myself. 6 months later, Amelia called again, this time crying. Nathan had left her. His family had turned cold once the money ran out. Her voice trembled through the phone. "Mom, I don't know what to do." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. For years, I'd been the one begging for a place at her table. Now she was the one asking for mine. "Come home," I said softly. Not as a bride, not as a child, but as a human who's learned what love really means. She came, and when she did, I didn't seat her behind any curtain. I made her sit beside me, in the front row of my life. Because revenge isn't always about destruction. Sometimes it's about restoring dignity quietly, and letting karma do the rest. They thought I wouldn't notice, but I found the letter that was supposed to erase me. It had been 4 months since Amelia's wedding. The night I was hidden behind a curtain like an embarrassment. I hadn't heard from her since. Just silence. Until one Tuesday morning, a pale blue envelope slipped under my apartment door changed everything. I had learned to fill my days with little routines. Tea at 7, a walk to the park, feeding the pigeons, pretending not to ache when I saw mothers and daughters laughing together. I had forgiven her, or so I told myself. That morning, I wore my navy blue dress again. The same one from the wedding. It was my only good one. When I saw Amelia's handwriting on that envelope, my heart fluttered like it used to when she'd send me birthday cards from college. Inside was a single sheet of paper, crisp, official. Not an invitation, not an apology, a notice of sale. That evening I went to the house one last time. Maybe to confront, maybe just to understand. They were hosting a dinner, friends, laughter, clinking glasses. I stood outside by the open window, the night air thick with perfume and betrayal, and I heard Amelia say to one of her guests, laughing softly, "Mom never understood business. We just made it legal before she could mess anything up." Someone asked, "Does she even know?" And Amelia replied, "She won't. She barely reads anymore." They laughed, and for the first time I didn't cry. I just stood there, frozen, calm, like the pain had turned into glass. I remembered the years after Mark's death, working double shifts at the school, skipping dinners so Amelia could attend her art classes. I remembered pawning my wedding ring so she could buy her first laptop. I remembered writing checks with trembling hands for her wedding expenses because she said, "Mom, it'll be embarrassing if the hall isn't grand enough." Every sacrifice I made was now a document she had used to cut me out of my own life. I walked away from that window, slow and steady. No one saw me. No one ever did. That night, I took out a small wooden box from under my bed, the one with Mark's old legal papers. He had always been cautious. Every deed, every signature carefully notarized, copies hidden away. My name was on everything, including a clause. Any sale or transfer without the spouse's written consent shall be null and void. I smiled for the first time in months. They thought I was weak because I stayed silent. They forgot silence remembers everything. The next week, I mailed a copy of those papers to the family lawyer. By the following Friday, Amelia's husband called me, voice trembling. "Mom, there's been a misunderstanding." I didn't argue. I didn't yell. I simply said, "No misunderstanding, dear. Just correction," and I hung up. Months later, I received another envelope, this time from the same lawyer. The house had been restored to my name. I sold it quietly without telling them, bought a small cottage by the sea. Now, every evening, I sit by the window watching the horizon burn gold. Seagulls cry over the waves, and I whispered to Mark, "You were right. Family isn't who you raise. It's who stands beside you when the curtain falls." I forgave Amelia, but I never went back. Some endings don't need witnesses, only peace. Hook 030 sec. She locked me in that 40-square-foot room. I sold her 2,000-square-foot dream. The words echoed in my mind as I stood outside the house that once used to be mine, or rather, the one I built with my husband's hands and my prayers. The sold sign was still fresh in the front yard, red against the white paint like a scar that had finally stopped bleeding. Soraya's laughter had once filled this home. Now only silence lived here, my silence, The kind that doesn't beg anymore, only remembers. My name doesn't matter much anymore. Once I was a wife, a mother, a woman who believed that love could heal anything. I had given my daughter and her husband Sterling the down payment for this very house, $50,000 from my retirement fund. At the time, I called it a gift of love, a way to keep the family together after Harold's passing. I never imagined that one day, the same home would become my prison. When they moved me into that tiny back room, barely enough space to turn around, I told myself it was temporary. They said it was for my comfort. But when you hear laughter from the living room while you eat your dinner alone, comfort turns into humiliation. Still, I brought gifts. I stayed polite. I made tea when guests came. I kept hoping. Maybe tomorrow they'll remember who I am. That hope ended the day I overheard Zariah telling someone on the phone, "We just keep her here because we have to. She's too old to live alone, and if we send her to a home, people will talk." I froze, teacup in hand. The words didn't sting, they sliced. Because I wasn't some obligation. I was the woman who built their life. The woman who taught Zariah how to walk in heels, how to write her first resume, how to love. And yet, in this grand house, I was invisible. They used to say age makes you softer, but sometimes it hardens you in just the right places. One afternoon, while cleaning the dining table, I heard Sterling whisper, "If she ever asks for her money back, we'll say it was a gift." There's no proof. That was the day the tremor stopped in my hands, because suddenly, I remembered something Harold once told me. Never give away what you can loan. People respect paper more than love. So, I took the bus to meet his old attorney, Michael Chen, the same man who handled our estate years ago. He looked shocked when I told him what was happening. Then he opened the file, flipped through pages, and smiled gently. "Mrs. Carter," he said, "your husband prepared for this. That $50,000 wasn't a gift. It was a loan. You're still listed as co-signer." I felt the air return to my lungs. I wasn't powerless. I was patient. I remembered the long nights working double shifts at the clinic while Harold struggled with chemo. I remembered selling my wedding jewelry to pay for Zariah's college. I remembered watching her graduate and thinking, she'll never have to struggle like I did. All that effort turned into confinement in a storage room. But Harold had left me one last gift, the power to reclaim my dignity. Michael explained everything carefully. "You can call in the loan," he said. "They'll have to sell the house to repay you." I didn't even blink. "Do it," I said. The next week, while Zariah was out shopping for curtains, Michael handled the paperwork. The cash buyers were ready. By the time she returned, the deal was done. When their car pulled into the driveway, I was standing there, suitcase beside me, dressed in my navy blue dress. The one Harold said made me look like peace in motion. Sterling stepped out first, confusion in his eyes. Zariah followed, her face turning pale as she saw the sold sign. "You sold our house?" she screamed, voice cracking like glass. I looked her straight in the eye. "No," I said quietly. "I sold my loan." She tried to speak, but I handed her a brown folder instead. The same one she'd once used to write cruel notes about me, calling me a burden. "Here's your real confusion," I said softly. "You thought kindness was weakness." Then I turned and walked toward the taxi that waited at the gate. I didn't look back. 6 months later, I live in a small bungalow by the lake. It's not big, but it's mine. My garden grows wild and free, like me. Sterling and Zariah divorced soon after. He couldn't stand the lies anymore. Now he visits me every Sunday, sometimes with the children. He brings flowers, not apologies. There's no more shouting, no locked doors, no 40-square-foot cages, just peace. Sometimes, while watering my plants, I think of that little room, how it taught me everything pride never could. People say revenge is loud, but they're wrong. True revenge is calm. It's the sound of your footsteps leaving a place that once made you feel small. It's silence that humbles those who once mocked you, because they tried to bury me in that room. They forgot I was a seed. They tried to bury her in a room, but they forgot she was a seed. If this story touched your heart, if you've ever been betrayed, forgotten, or underestimated, remember, silence isn't weakness, it's strategy. Don't just scroll, comment, respect. if you felt her strength. And share this story with someone who needs to hear it today. And don't forget to subscribe for more real emotional stories like this one. Because here, we don't just tell stories, we unmask the truth behind them.